Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the Apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC Rich, and I'm joined by my guest, Bo Sheldon. Hey Bo, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we have our normal kickoff question here. How long have you been playing PBTA games, and what was your gateway?
So I've been playing PBTA since about 2012-ish, I think. I think I've been playing since I went to a Columbus Game Day and played, I think, Apocalypse World first, and then Monster Hearts, or vice versa.
Okay.
And been playing ever since then.
Cool. Now, did you start off playing, or did you run, or was the first foray that you recall?
I am almost always a player. I'm not much of a facilitator or GM at all. I much prefer the player role.
Cool. I gotta ask, do you remember what one of your first characters was?
I think I played one named BB, who was a gunlugger.
Nice.
And I did a fair bit of destroying with that character, if I recall correctly.
That sounds appropriate for a gunlugger. That's awesome. All right, well, why don't we jump over here and read a sitch. Read a sitch. In Read a Sitch, we talk about what's happening at our tables, focusing around Powered by the Apocalypse games, if at all possible, but sometimes we broaden that scope. Bo, I wanted to see, what's going on with you in gaming? What did you want to talk about?
So, I play a lot of different games. I have been inspired a lot by Apocalypse games like Powered by the Apocalypse and related games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's very interesting how games can inspire us to think about ourselves and who we are as people, and how they make us think about our identities. More than anything else, I think, for me, coming from a more traditional background in games, because I started playing originally Shadowrun and D&D, coming into games where, there was an option to be a gender other than, a man or a woman, and to have queer characters and stuff like that allowed me to kind of explore who I was a lot more. And it was actually a couple of games that relate to Powered by the Apocalypse, or that were Powered by the Apocalypse, that helped me to come out as non-binary and to choose my name. So I think that the exploration of identity that we have in indie games and through games like these are really important.
What are some of the games that you recall having the most impact? Do you have any in particular in mind that were powerful for you?
Yeah, so Sagas of the Icelanders, interestingly enough, is the game that helped me come out as non-binary. So I was assigned female at birth, and I played Sagas of the Icelanders at, I think it was Origins in like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been closeted for basically my entire life. And I'm non-binary masculine now. But at the time, I hadn't been comfortable coming out, even though I knew a lot of queer people, a lot of non-binary people.
Mm-hmm.
But I played a game with Eric Mersman and Tracy Barnett and Jason Morningstar and a bunch of other awesome people. And I played this like super masculine character, because that's kind of what Sagas does, is it does like really like hyper-gendered roles, and it really like explores what gendered identity is in gendered roles in society. And it allowed me to kind of ask some questions of myself and, take on a role that in other times I'd played with at this point kind of was a little formalized. I basically like really embraced it. And after I left that game, basically I went home and decided like that night that I was going to come out.
Wow.
And it was a really big impact on me.
That is fascinating. And it is super interesting that it's Sagas of the Icelanders, which has, a man playbook, a woman playbook, has gendered moves. For people who may not recall the Sagas of the Icelanders episode of Plus One Forward, there was some talk about that. Jason Morningstar even talked about it in the Night Witches episode during his Read a Sitch. So that's one of those games that seems to be on the lips of a lot of people, and that is a really interesting how much of an impact it had on you. For me, I find it super interesting that Powered by the Apocalypse explores gender in ways that I hadn't seen before. Now, not to say that that isn't out there, but kind of the power of the pick list, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
for it to say right there, right on the character page. It isn't some kind of blank that you fill in whatever you want. It's saying, you know, man, woman, transgressing, agender. There are a lot of those options out there on the different pick lists for Powered by the Apocalypse games. And I think that's powerful. I think representing, having it out there, giving you that as option up front and center with the same level of value as any other part of the pick list is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that opening up the option to have a choice of gender represented at all, which some trad games I think may have played with in presentation and illustrations, but never really illustrated mechanics. And indie games, I think, struggled with at times, even the early ones. I think Powered by the Apocalypse games and the Apocalypse World really jumped into that. It hasn't always been done perfectly, but I think that the fact that we've, as an industry and using Powered by the Apocalypse, tried to embrace gender having options is a big thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, is there anything, Bo, that you wish games would explore, or Powered by the Apocalypse specifically? You know, here we are on Plus One Forward, but anything that you wish was out there for games or other ways to explore it?
I think that it would be cool to explore pacifism more. It's something I do try to explore in turn a little bit, specifically the choice of violence and what violence means. I think that it's very difficult in our current world, whenever we're all very, very angry all the time, to think of like maybe like just not doing things to hurt each other and what that might mean. And things like not violating each other's consent and stuff. Because like there are plenty of PBTA games that I think are really great, but I don't play because their mechanics will venture into violating consent or agency in ways that I'm not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens in tons of other games. It's not just PBTA. It's not just, you know, these specific games. But it's just sometimes because these games are more intimate or more personal, it becomes more impactful. And I'd like to see more games get to a point where we're gentler with that kind of thing. And whenever I talk about pacifism, I'm not just talking about not killing people. I'm talking about not stepping into each other's agency and not stepping into each other's consent and not hurting people in a way that like makes them unable to make their own choices and not taking away their ability to decide. And that's something I'd like to see more of, especially as we explore like cyberpunk and solar punk and hope punk and stuff like that people are like super into, but then like we see moves and stuff that are like, and then like whenever you have a sex move with somebody, you just like get to do whatever you want to them. And I'm like, no, like,
No,
man, I'm so
no.
not on board. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm hoping we'll see more of. The more we all begin to understand that kind of stuff as like a culture, because it's obvious that in our culture in games, we need to understand those things.
Yeah, I like indie games because a lot of times they're on the fringe of where a society is interested in exploring. Sometimes that perhaps there are frontiers out there. There are things that I've seen in role-playing games far before I saw it in conversation with, say, people at work or something you see on broadcast television.
Absolutely.
That kind of
Absolutely.
stuff.
I didn't become a progressive until I became an indie gamer. It was a coincident thing. They happened at the same time. I value that incredibly, but I also think that sometimes we're catching up with each other at the same time with progressives and indie gamers, like trying to make sure we're at the same speed.
So if only all progressives would start playing indie games, right?
Everyone could benefit both directions, I think.
I agree. Well, cool. You've talked a little bit about, or kind of hinted towards, a design of your own. So why don't we open our brain to this game that we want to talk about? Does that sound okay to you, Bo?
Sounds great.
Open your brain.
All right, we're going to open our brain to Bo's game called Turn. So, Turn. Is this about keys? Is that what this game's about?
No.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, what's Turn? What's the setting? What's it about?
So Turn is a slice of life supernatural role-playing game about shapeshifters in small rural towns who struggle between their beast and human sides in a like quiet drama while trying to find balance and community with both other shifters and mundanes in their town.
Interesting. I want to ask a couple quick questions.
Yeah.
How many shifters would there be? It's a small town, right? Is a small town, is that a few thousand people? Is that 10,000 people? What is there any definition to small town in the game, or is that something that's kind of decided at the table?
So there's actually restrictions on how big the towns can be. It was actually a really complicated thing to design that because small towns in the US, they vary in size pretty wildly by a lot of people's measures. But I really wanted to have one that was kind of small enough that everybody could still recognize you, but like big enough that you could occasionally like get lost. And the towns in turn, they're typically 1,000 to 5,000 permanent residents. Some of the stretch goals from the Kickstarter have larger towns. Like for Italy, they're slightly bigger because there just aren't that really small towns in Italy anymore. It's basically like going to be the same way with the border towns whenever that stretch goal is completed, where like the towns can't get below 1,000 because then there's no kind of privacy anymore. There's no way to stay hidden. And if you get over 5,000 in the kind of landscape we have here in the US, you start to disappear and it's not as much of a threat anymore. But it depends how many, you get to choose kind of how many there are of shifters in the town. Like we have some like suggestions on keeping it so it's like a reasonable amount, but it's normally not too many. Normally there are a couple of families worth, and that's about it. But it could like be a long legacy. Like you could have been here for a really long time. You could have been the founders of the town and everyone else just grew in around you. That has its own kind of feeling.
Yeah. So what are the mechanics in turn that might be different from someone coming in from, say, Apocalypse World or Monster Hearts?
A lot of them, actually. There's a fair number of stuff that is similar, I guess. So there's the 7 to 9 type ladder that everyone is basically familiar with. And there is a base 2d6 with like prioritizing fiction in your narrative.
Okay.
But there's also an additional die that you can roll a lot of the time. That's called the turn die. And that you can call on anytime. You can make it make sense based on your character sheets. So the turn die is, you have 2 character sheets to start off. That's different. Not a lot of PBTA stuff has 2 character sheets. You have one for your human side, one for your beast side. Whenever you're in one form, if something on your other sheet can help you, you can tag your turn die to roll whenever you're rolling for a struggle or a power or something like that. And it's basically an additional bonus die.
Okay.
So a lot more of the time you have 3 dice to roll instead of 2.
I'm curious, is there a cost for using the turn die?
Yes. You actually have to take stress. And stress is one of the additional mechanics. And stress builds up on each character sheet for each form. And as it builds up, the higher it gets, the closer you come to force turning into the other form. So you take it as you're in each form, and you'll flip over to the other one, basically, like change forms. Okay. You can only be like comforted out of those forms, basically, whenever you've been force turned. So it can be a little bit difficult.
That sounds tough. Okay. You definitely need folks who actually care about you then. That's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of turn is about building relationships and like making community and friendships. We actually had a scene where 2 of our characters in one of our playtest games had force turned at the same time. So they couldn't comfort each other, because if you're in beast form, you can't comfort each other. You can only comfort in human form.
Okay.
And so they had to basically try and get a friend to come help them while they were like hiding in the woods. And it was like a really difficult situation because they were like, it was a beast, a bear and a snake. And they were like totally like changed form and everything and just like couldn't do anything about it. And thankfully they were able to get a hold of someone who could come help them. Otherwise they were stuck in that form until they manage to find another solution. There is a way to prioritize yourself, but it's not like easy. It's another one of the struggles that you use, which are kind of a replacement for moves. Struggles kind of work a little backwards from moves. I shared with you the link for struggles.
Yep, looking at it right now. So how does it work backwards? Walk me through this.
It basically tells you what you don't do, and the other things happen whenever you make a decision when you roll. So say you want to be understood, and that's on the beast form. So this will be like when you do a thing,
Yeah.
you roll minus tactful. One of the things that these do is you actually roll subtracting one of your habits or instincts, which are your stats basically. And you get to choose one of the things and choose one or two of them based on your roll. And if you choose that you don't betray your nature and you don't mark exposure, then your meaning isn't clear and firm, and you also appear weak and able to be manipulated. So it kind of like the opposite happens of what it says on the sheet if you don't choose it.
Okay. Yeah.
And exposure is actually one of the other things that's not a typical PBTA thing. And it's kind of a big deal. Exposure is essentially the core mechanic of the game.
Okay.
But it only comes into effect once things start to happen. Exposure is what you take when it becomes evident to someone that you are not who they think you are. You can take it in any form.
Okay.
It either is when mundane beasts or mundane humans gain the kind of idea that maybe you aren't mundane and that you are in fact possibly a shifter.
Okay. That makes sense. That's a threat that we see in a lot of the werewolf-related fiction and that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And it builds up over time. There are ways sometimes to mitigate it, but it's kind of, it'll run off if you aren't careful. And whenever it gets to the end, you reach a resolution and you have to roll the dice. It applies both for NPC relationships and for the town itself. And for the NPC relationships, those also build up towards the town itself as like potential positive or negative effects. The effect of exposure can be negative or positive. And if it's positive, you can have a positive result, like being known to the town and being accepted even though you're a shapeshifter, or being known to an NPC and being accepted, which we've had happen in game as known to an NPC we've had happen. And then there's a result called revealed, which we've had happen to the town, which was really a lot harder than I expected it to be, because it was my namesake character that it happened to. And it's like kind of the middling result, which is like, yeah, they didn't kill you, but it's kind of rough. But then there's reviled, which means either you die or you get run out of town, basically. And it's very, very difficult, and it's supposed to be kind of the scary result. That's the horror element of turn. That's where it gets really hard.
What's your favorite move in turn, and why?
All of the powers, abilities, and struggles are kind of like a little bit like moves, but not quite like moves. And I've kind of like taken moves, stuck the guts out, and put something else back in, kind of. And my favorite one of those is actually, of the struggles, I would say my favorite is Mind Your Manners. And Mind Your Manners comes up a lot, and I'll actually read it aloud if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So Mind Your Manners. When your beast threatens to speak first, roll minus honest. On 10 plus, choose 2. On 7 to 9, choose 1. You don't betray your nature and don't mark exposure. You don't cause offense with your directness. Or you don't give too much information or reveal an uncomfortable truth. It comes up almost every session, sometimes multiple times, and it's like a kind of an exposure engine of its own, and it also leads to a lot of secrecy and like gossip and revealing of secrets, and it's very intense sometimes because you'll have people give up a secret to hide the chance of exposing themselves. It's really interesting and fascinating, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. That's really neat. Well, great. You got me pretty excited about Turn right now, Bo. Do you think maybe we could jump on over here and Act Under Fire and get a chance to play it for a little bit?
I will do my best. I do not normally GM. I'm not normally the town manager, so I'll do my best.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do fine.
It is time to act under fire.
All right, in Act Under Fire, we do a quick little actual play. Bo has been gracious enough to create a character for me, so I will not be playing the normal signature character of Plusy. Instead, I will be playing Logan Lassiter. Pronouns of he and him. Bo, how do you want to start this off?
So I'll do a quick brief about Logan.
Okay.
So Logan is actually based, his character type is the Confidant and the Possum. His beast is the Possum, and those were released with the Kickstarter. They're not in the book, but they are in the character sheets that were released, and they're special, basically. They're unique, and they haven't gotten seen by a lot of people, so that's part of the reason why I wanted to share them. Logan he is from one of our longest run character testing scenarios that we did play testing, and it's called Cauldron Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the mayor's nephew who works at a local bar named Ginny's. So he looks like the lead singer of the band Panic at Disco, Brendan Urie, but he also is, when in beast form, a scrubby little possum. So he's a little bit of an entertaining contrast. The scenario I have set is the morning of Founders Days, which is like a really big deal in Cauldron Springs. And we're going to run through a brief scene in beast form and then into human form.
Okay, let's see.
Cool. The setting is in the morning. Logan is in beast form on his way to a human appointment where he has to be serving drinks at a commerce luncheon for Founders Day with his best friend Lola.
All right.
But on his way there, he crosses paths with two very important things.
Okay.
And these two important things are an entire nest of eggs and his uncle talking to none other than Roger McMichael, one of the richer men in the town.
Okay.
Who is handing him a small package.
Small package? Do those eggs look tasty?
Absolutely.
I can't decide. Perhaps I could grab a couple of eggs and then go watch. Could I do that? Do I think I could pull that off? Just munch on, say, 1 or 2 eggs while I watch this package exchange. Then I can go back, because it's not like the eggs are going to run away or roll away. Like, I think that could work. What do you think?
I think you might be able to manage that. I would say what you're probably going to want to do is prioritize here. And that's on the struggles sheet. And this is when you put yourself first, because you want those eggs, right?
I do.
And so whenever you prioritize, you roll minus generous, which is his highest stat. I'm so sorry.
Oh, man. Okay.
And that's 2d6. I can roll it for you if you want.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, no. So you got a 2.
All right. So on a miss, do I not get any choices?
So
I don't get any choices,
this
do
is
I?
actually an interesting way to demonstrate what happens whenever you get a minus, like basically a 6 minus in turn. A 6 minus in turn is everything happens.
All 3 of the options for prioritize happen?
So in this case, you mark stress. This means any beasts that are around, or if you were to have an animal group with you, like some of the other beasts do, you would mark exposure with them. And when you return to human form, you actually mark exposure with humans, which is going to be real fun. at that brunch that you're going to shortly.
Would that be with the town then, when I actually mark it?
It'll be with either the NPC that's there or the town. It depends on who is at the scene whenever you get there. So
keep piling it on. There's more.
I think that's actually what hits you right now.
Okay.
The town manager can kind of hold a effect as well, if necessary, which is great. And so I think what happens right now is the best thing is you do absolutely get the eggs, because all of the characters that are shifters in turn have super hearing. You do get to hear the conversation too.
God, if only I just stuck by these eggs and not bothered to. Okay.
So mixed into your crunching, you hear Roger McMichael describing to the mayor how he's giving him this fishing trip so that he can get this land's right purchase that he wants to pass through a little bit more quickly, right? Because he wants to make it happen. And the mayor is like, I want to be very clear that this is not getting this to happen. This is just easing the wheels. It's greasing the wheels. I'm not doing this for you. It's just helping it along. So what you've learned is that your uncle is technically taking a bribe, but perhaps not in the worst of ways.
Yeah.
And that Roger McMichael, who will be at the brunch in approximately a half hour, is a dirtbag. What's it like to be a possum? I'm curious to ask.
Well, it's pretty fantastic to be a possum, really. You're free from all of those restrictions like clothing and jobs, responsibilities, sneak wherever you want. Your hearing's pretty awesome. You got this cool tail. It's not prehensile, but I've tried. Yeah, it's all in all, I think possum's pretty great. I feel bad for the other shifters. They just didn't get all the goods.
Cool. As you're reflecting on that, you hear the mayor's alarm on his watch beep. That there's 15 minutes until you have to be at the brunch.
Oh crap. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna leave my duplicitous uncle behind and take off through the forest and try to get to the commerce function.
Thankfully, one of the wonderful options in turn is to have it so that your clothes shift with you.
Yes. Because
that was one of the very first things I was like, you can have that as an option. That's going to be a thing. If you want to arrive on time, you will arrive on time.
I think maybe he would have been on time, but he rushed back for a third egg and that put him a few minutes late.
Sounds good. So you scoot in brushing eggshells off your... I think that's partially what gets you that mark of exposure. And I think that mark of exposure is actually with Lola.
Oh.
And Lola MacArthur is your good trashy friend who is basically helping you out this weekend because your work needed a second waitress to serve as the commerce luncheon.
Oh, so I've already pulled a favor from her just to be here and I show up late? Oh, great.
So
that looks terrible.
I think it may be a negative exposure, which is rough, but you might be able to fix it later.
With good fingers crossed.
The way that the exposure works whenever you write it down for NPCs in the town is you write it in a minus or a plus, depending on whether it's negative or positive.
Okay.
And since this is that exposure that you were picking up for the prioritize, you'll just type in it as a minus.
Okay.
Cool. So Lola rushes up to you as you walk in the door, and she's like, where were you? Seriously. There are 32 old men. 32.
Well, I mean, we could talk about why I'm a little bit late, or we could get to serving those 32 minutes so they don't get super, super mad and not tip us. I promise I'll tell you later.
Fine. You owe me.
I already owe you.
Fine.
Just put it on the list.
Fine. And she rushes off to go get the mimosas and all that stuff.
And then I'll start making pitchers full of tea, unsweet and sweet, and mark them so that I don't
Nice.
screw them up. And give someone sweet tea when they think they're getting unsweet. They get very upset about that.
The cool thing about turn is, if you say you're going to succeed at something, you do. That's actually the rule. So now that you've done that, you don't have to worry about it.
Cool.
You go about and you start serving people up and everything. Roger McMichael is there, and he's like whispering to like some of the old guys while like looking at your uncle. Do you try and listen in with your incredibly good super hearing?
Yes, I do. I will try to surreptitiously eavesdrop without getting caught. Maybe I'll be pouring a drink extra slowly so that I can focus and hear. I really hope that he's not setting my uncle up. That
Okay.
would be the worst.
So to do this, you will have to tread softly
All right, I can tread softly.
because you're doing like other physical things while you're doing it. If you were just like standing still doing it, I wouldn't make you.
But I'm not.
So treading softly is when your beast tries, like, because beasts are a little bit more like forceful and stuff like that. So when your beast defies your attempts at finesse, you roll minus forceful, which is a little bit easier for an opossum because you're not super forceful.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. I've got a 0 in
let's
force.
go. Much better that time. So you got a 9.
Oh, so close. And is there any way I could have used a turn die here?
Yes.
Oh, I can?
I didn't suggest you used it last time because you would have like, it was such a bad roll.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was terrible. Yeah, why bother? But now, maybe I could push that to a 10. Do I get to add that in? Do I swap it out with one of the results?
Here's what you do is you look at your possum sheet because you're in your human form right now, and look at the powers you have marked and the ones that you don't have marked. Any of the stuff on there that seems like it would make sense to help with this roll, like if you are good at kind of like, you know, making things look good even if it's kind of rough with pot a bow on it, or if you're good at like getting off scot-free for doing stuff that's you're not supposed to be doing with playing possum. Those all count. You can tag those and add the turn die, roll it, and add it to the die roll.
Okay. I think getting away scot-free from a thing might apply here, so I'd like
Okay.
to tag that.
Okay. So you add a stress to your human form.
Right?
So the stress that you took last time should have been on your beast form, and the stress that you took this time goes on your human form. And you literally rolled a 1, but you still got a 10. So you
I am the worst roller, but I got a 10.
It's my bad luck, I swear. I'm sorry. All right. So basically what that means is on a 10 plus, you choose 2 things.
Mhm.
That's from the pick list under Tread Softly.
I am okay to mark stress because causing collateral damage at this thing would be terrible.
Yeah.
And leaving behind signs of my beast and marking exposure, also terrible.
Yeah. All right. You definitely hear the whole conversation. There's just no consequences for it aside from the stress.
All right.
That's how the struggles really work. They're about what consequences there are for your actions, less than like the actual success or failure. And so Roger is being like, so I have evidence that the mayor was willing to accept bribes.
Oh, this guy's so dirty.
And it sounds like he's basically trying to explain to these men that he's talking to about how, and you like using the kind of cacophonous sounds of the room to mask, like explaining that he's going to use it to unseat the mayor. As mad as you are at the mayor, your uncle, this is definitely like he was trying to like abuse the situation, probably. I have to ask, how do you feel about this right now?
Ogun is mad at his uncle. If he hadn't taken that bag of money from a D-bag, we wouldn't be in this trouble. He's gonna have to give that bag back. Ooh, or turn it in. Yeah, so I feel like I know what's coming, so maybe we can stay ahead of it. I'm still mad, but maybe we can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. I need to get out of here. Lola's got to cover the rest of the shift. I've got to go talk to my uncle, like, right now.
Well, your uncle's like right beside you. He's only like across the room.
Oh, he's at this thing? Oh, well, good. I'll go talk to him.
Are you going to go interrupt him while he's talking to some of the people who are funding the event?
I am.
Or are you going to have to mind your manners and be polite in public society?
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. This is the best part. Because you
Hmm.
can just do it.
I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it.
All right.
I've got to grab him. This is far more important. Roger McMichael is making his move now.
Do you just go up and say, hey, I need to talk to you like right now kind of thing?
No, I spill some tea on him.
Oh, no.
Like I'm going to refill his glass, and then I swoosh it across and pour some tea on him. Oh, Unc, I'm sorry. Come on. Hey, come on over here. We'll get that all fixed up. I need to talk to you.
He definitely, he will step away because he is a tidy person. He does not want to look, messy at all.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I don't know what you've been up to today, but Roger McMichael is telling people that he has evidence that you took a bribe and he wants to get you ousted.
Are you serious?
I just overheard him talking to some of the founders right over there. And it sounded like he had does he have hard evidence, Uncle?
We had a discussion earlier. I can't imagine why he thinks that it means what he is saying.
Could it be the bag?
How would you know about that?
Maybe I saw it.
When?
Earlier today, as I was on my way here to work, walking.
I didn't see you.
But it happened. Listen, you need to turn him in. Say that you took the money you were afraid and go to the cops. And stay ahead of him. Stay a step ahead of him. And you can come out of this.
I think that for once you're right, Logan.
There's a cocky little smile on his face.
I'll go this afternoon.
You should go now. You should really go now. He's already trying to build this stuff. If the cops come in here and arrest him in front of everyone, he's doomed. If you wait, you're going to lose that chance. I'll distract people with something. Maybe I'll set a fire.
No, just if someone asks, tell them your grandmother's sick.
Oh, that's way better than a fire. This is why you're the mayor.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll tell them. No problem.
Stay out of trouble, Logan. Maybe someday you'll get bribed. And he just bolts. I think that's actually a really good
That is totally the ending of that is fantastic. Bo, thank you so much for coming on and giving me a chance to play a little bit of Turn and learn about it. Where can people pick up Turn if they missed out on the Kickstarter but they are interested?
So currently Turn is available at breebo.itch.io as a PDF download, and also at DriveThru RPG under Daedalum Analog Productions is who's selling it on there. And that's BRIEBEAU.itch.io. And I hope to have it on IPR at the end of the month or shortly after once we have the print copies available. It's just, we're currently doing the actual printing part right now.
Yeah, that's quite all right. Okay.
Yeah, and just one last thing. If anyone who is a marginalized person or someone who serves marginalized people as part of an organization or a library can't afford a copy and would like a copy, please feel free to reach out to me or use the link on the Itch.io page that goes to the form to request a copy. I will happily send you a copy. I would love to get copies out to people that way. We had part of the Kickstarter was actually people bought copies for marginalized people through community copies.
That's awesome.
And I'd love to put those forward.
Great. Once again, Bo, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing Turn with us.
Thank you so much.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at @+1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com.
Hello, listeners. Jason here. We put a lot of care into the Gauntlet family of podcasts because we want you to be entertained and we want you to engage with these games that we love. And listening to us talk about role-playing games is great. Reading blog posts about role-playing games is great. Interacting on forums about role-playing games, such as the Gauntlet forums, that is also great. But in my opinion, nothing compares to actually playing tabletop role-playing games. And with that in mind, I want to invite you to check out our $8 Hangouts Friend Patreon tier. The Hangouts Friend tier gets you early RSVP access to new games posted on Gauntlet Hangouts, our amazing online gaming calendar, where we organize and run nearly 200 sessions per month. It is the absolute best way to get involved with the Gauntlet community, experience our awesome play culture, and importantly, play some role-playing games. We have done everything we can to make Gauntlet Hangouts as flexible and accessible as possible, and we have been successful. Over the last 2 years, we have organized 2,498 game sessions. The $8 tier also gets you access to new issues of our fantastic magazine Codex, where we publish all kinds of original games and supplements, as well as access to our Slack group, which is the heart of our community. It is a truly fantastic deal, and even if you only played in 1 or 2 games a month, it would be the best value in all of role-playing games. And not only do you get all the benefits I've mentioned here, but you also help support great podcasts like this one. So please head over to patreon.com/gauntlet and check it out. Thanks.